Hey, folks. Happy Friday and welcome to the Freedom from the Press podcast. My name's Jason Robertson, and today I'm doing a solo run. I hope everybody had a fantastic Thanksgiving. I hope everybody had time with friends and family. I got to say, too, I got to give a shout out over to the Rumble audience. Now, you guys might notice today I'm running solo. Todd's tied up with Thanksgiving number 4 for him or whatever the number is. So bear with me as we figure out some technical stuff and some things we got going on. But hey, over on the Rumble, K-Gun Girl, always with the first check-in. Welcome and thank you. We got Mark over there. Mark and K-Gun Girl are talking about the tragedy that happened in D.C. this weekend, which is what we're going to be going into today. We got Francis over there. Hey, K-Gun Girl. I think Jen Robb from Minnesota's around. She isn't marking in on the chat yet. But as we get going, I'm going to have a huge favor to ask you guys. First of all, we're coming to you live on several Facebook pages, YouTube, Twitter, on Todd Mayan, the business Twitter, and my personal favorite platform, Rumble. And why do I love Rumble? We got a great community we're building over there. We get a lot of patriots, people who see the insanity of the world, take time out of their day to hang out. The other thing that I like about Rumble, and today's show is going to be very relevant for that. Rumble doesn't censor. So some of the topics we're going to talk about what happened in DC. We're going to talk about what happened with the Somalis in Minnesota. We're going to talk about Trump's reaction. And I have to say, many times these big tech platforms don't like when we talk about that, especially the YouTube, especially the Facebook, because we have to talk about some pretty horrific things, and it's going to take some pretty horrific actions to correct this and take our country back. So as we get going, like I say, do me a huge favor, hit the like, comment, let me know where you're tuning in from. Hit the share button, lets the algorithms on all the platforms know. And I'll say, if you are tuning in on some of the other platforms, I'm just going to say, get over to Rumble. Rumble works a lot like the YouTube. You can find us on the American Tribune Rumble channel. We got a great chat going over there. We got a great audience over there. And Rumble won't censor what we say. So sometimes we'll be doing a podcast and all of a sudden, boom, the feed's gone on some of the pages because Facebook's like, no, you can't talk about that. And we've got to talk. Really, a lot of this stuff is pretty dark. We're going to end on some good news too, but we, with everybody's permission, let's get into it. And I got to say, I love seeing the chats. Oh my God, the wife's over there. Jen Robb from Minnesota's here. I offered to let Jen Robb co-host with me, but she's like, oh no, I am not going on the interweb. So anyways, hey, we even got Mr. Scott Awesome over on the Rumble. Welcome. We're happy to have you. So first, to bring everybody up to speed, in Washington, D.C., over the Thanksgiving period, there were 2 National Guard members that were killed or that were shot. Details have changed a lot about what happened, but an Afghan national who came in under the Afghan evacuation under Joe Biden. So if you go back in time, I'd go find the videos, but remember the people hanging off planes and just herding people in. We abandoned the air base in Afghanistan. And I got to say, Afghanistan will go down as one of the worst things America's done. We spent millions and billions of dollars in Afghanistan. Many people were killed. The Taliban was in charge when we sent in the troops, set up the bases. We put all this blood and treasure in Afghanistan to 20 years later, pull out and turn Afghanistan back over to the Taliban. So somebody explain to me how, other than the war complex getting rich, how was that a good idea? Oh God, I just realized I didn't have the chat up. Sorry about that, guys. But anyway, so we in the evacuation, it was horrible. We lost military service members. They were just throwing people on planes. People were falling off planes. Just the whole thing was a complete S show from Joe Biden and the Biden administration. It was a good move to get out. The exit handled was horribly. And I'm going to start this story with sharing something J.D. Vance had said during the campaign. And I think this is pretty relevant to what we see happening here. Let me get my things going. So here's what J.D. Vance said during the campaign when he was asked about the Afghanistan withdrawal.
Refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that.
When you talked to us in August, you said, I don't think we should abandon anybody who's been properly vetted and helped us. Do you stand by that?
Well, Margaret, I don't agree that all these immigrants or all these refugees have been properly vetted. In fact, we know that there are cases of people who allegedly were properly vetted and then were literally planning terrorist attacks on our country. That happened during the campaign, if you may remember. So clearly not all of these foreign nationals
but there are
have been properly
30,000
vetted.
people in the pipeline, Afghan refugees.
But my primary concern as the vice president, Margaret, is to look after the American people. And now that we know that we have vetting problems with a lot of these refugee programs, we absolutely cannot unleash thousands of unvetted people into our country.
These people
it's not
are vetted.
good.
These people are vetted.
Just like the guy who planned a terrorist attack in Oklahoma a few months ago, he was allegedly properly vetted. And many people in the media and the Democratic Party said that he was properly vetted. Clearly he wasn't. I don't want my children to share a neighborhood with people who are not properly vetted. And because I don't want it for my kids, I'm not going to force any other American citizens' kids to do that either.
No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really care, Margaret. I don't want that person in my country, and I think most Americans agree with me.
We'll be back in 1 minute. No, and that was a very particular case. It wasn't clear if he was radicalized when he got here or while he was living here.
I don't really.
When this clip first happened during the campaign, I remember it went viral for J.D. Vance saying, I really don't care, Margaret. And if you look at the case J.D. Vance is outlining, this is common sense. You have Afghanistan that doesn't want America, like just culturally that they're incompatible with America. You have a lot of people that don't want to be American, don't like Christian values. They were our allies because they didn't like the Taliban. And them coming to America shouldn't have ever really been on the table unless they wanted to assimilate and become American. J.D. Vance was called all the ists, Islamophobic. He was called all the names for telling Margaret, I really don't care. These folks shouldn't be in our country if they're not going to be good citizens, if we're not going to vet them, if we're not going to make sure. And really what we're trying to get down to is, are they going to agree with the American way of life? Or why are we looking at these populations of people that hate America, hate Judeo-Christian values, hate capitalism, and looking to bring them to America? Which is where we go with the Somali discussion. And we'll get into that. Have I given enough Rumble shout outs? The Rumble only, I got a couple really funny clips that we're going to play. Facebook, I know, would dislike these. YouTube would dislike them. So we won't go into them on those platforms. But overall, J.D. Vance nails it. Now, we allowed this Afghanistan man in. He travels to D.C., he goes up to 2 National Guard service members, and they are on the streets just trying to keep Washington, D.C. safe. It sounds like they were pretty close to the White House. Both were recently sworn in. One was a girl. He went up, shot him, took one of their pistols, shot the other one. Meanwhile, one of the other National Guard members saw what was happening. He wasn't even armed. He only had a pocket knife on him. And he goes and he takes down the attacker. Other National Guard heard the gunshots come swarming in. They catch the guy. They actually stripped him naked, if you've seen pictures, because he yelled Allah Akbar before he did the attack. Horrific. And they detain him. They take him in. We're still waiting unless something's come out in the last hour or two that I haven't seen to find out his motives or that kind of stuff. But you've got an Afghani national who did that. Now, sadly, Donald Trump made this announcement yesterday afternoon.
Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that were Beckstrom of West Virginia, one of the guardsmen that we're talking about, highly respected, young, magnificent person, started service in June of 2023, outstanding in every way. She's just passed away. She's no longer with us. She's looking down at us right now. Her parents are with her. It's just happened. She was savagely attacked. She's dead. She's now with us. Incredible person. Outstanding in every single way, in every department.
When I see and hear that, to me, this kind of strikes that nerve that I think all Americans should have. Like, if you remember after 9/11, 9/11 was one of the most horrific events that ever happened in America. And immediately after that happened, everybody kind of set down their sabers and said, let's unite as a country. This is bad. We're under attack. Now, the attack that happened in DC was not of that scale, but one would think people would take this as a unifying moment and say, you know what? We should have been in Afghanistan in the first place. We get out. And like Fally pointed out over on the Rumble, if they would have got the withdrawal done properly, they would have been able to vet those people that help, but they know their own agenda and loyalty. We didn't even vet. We didn't have a plan. We just pulled up wheels and we got out of Afghanistan. We've covered this on the podcast. We left billions of dollars of equipment. We lost American service member lives, horribly executed. Joe Biden should be in jail. He should have been removed from office for that horrible thing, but the media ran cover up. Now, Donald Trump yesterday does this announcement. The service member, after 24 hours or so of fighting for her life, passed away. And how does the media respond? This is insane.
And that happens too. It happens too often with these people. You see them. But look, this is how they come in.
About this tragic shooting in Washington, D.C. U.S. officials say that the suspect worked very closely with the CIA in Afghanistan for years, that he was vetted, and the vetting came up clean.
He went cuckoo. I mean, he went nuts. And that happens too. It happens too often with these people. You see them. But look, this is how they come in. This is how they're standing on top of each other, and that's an airplane. There was no vetting or anything. They came in unvetted. And we have a lot of others in this country. We're going to get them out. But they go cuckoo. Something happens to them.
Your DOJ IG just reported this year that there was thorough vetting by DHS and by the FBI of these Afghans who were brought into the U.S. So why do you blame the Biden administration?
Because they let them in. Are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Because they came on a plane along with thousands of other people that shouldn't be here, and you're just asking questions because you're a stupid person. And there's a law passed that it's almost impossible not to get them out. You can't get them out once they come in. And they came in, and they were unvetted, they were unchecked, there were many of them, and they came in on big planes, and it was disgraceful. And if you look, you'll see there was a law passed. It makes it almost impossible not to let them in, not to certify them, so to speak, once they come in. And they came in, and they shouldn't have come in. And frankly, the whole thing was a mess. The whole Afghanistan situation was a mess. It should have never taken place. If we're going to go out, and we would have gone out because I had everybody ready to go. We were going to go out with strength and dignity and precision. And we would have left from Bagram, and we would have kept Bagram, by the way, because of its very close relationship to China and where they make their missiles. But when you let the people come in by the thousands and thousands and thousands, they made a terrible mistake. But they were incompetent, yeah.
Now, I got to say, and K-Gun Girl hits the nail on the head. I love how Trump tells the truth. So this is huge. So we have a media, and we count on the media to tell us what's going on, what report the news, let us make our own decisions. And we call this podcast Freedom from the Press Podcast because we think the media is the enemy of the people. Look at this ridiculous framing that the media tries to do on Trump. And Trump, I got to say, I love when he's like, are you stupid? Are you a stupid person? Like, I love Trump for that. And wait till I read his statement here in a minute. You're going to love it. But the media, like, we all saw the videos of the people being shoved on planes. There was no vetting. There was no interview. There was no anything. It was handled horribly, ridiculously, shouldn't have been allowed. The second thing the media goes to sneak in there is they're like, oh, wasn't he recertified under your administration? So here's the facts. Their visa status, whatever the official term is, gets renewed periodically. And it's essentially an automatic process, meaning, okay, your time's up. You say, hey, I'd like to renew. They say, okay, you're approved. There is no revetting. There is no process. That law was passed as one of the last laws Joe Biden passed in his last year of his presidency. So what Donald Trump is saying is that there is really no re-review, and they're trying to pin it on Donald Trump, saying you guys didn't certify him or you didn't vet him the second time when he came up for renewal. But they're leaving out, and the media knows this, and they lie about it. But the media knew that Donald Trump, there was no way for him, unless this person did something horrific like this, to revoke his visa and send him home. But you're going to see people that consume CNN and MSNBC and all those things. You're going to see it on social media where everybody's going to make the claim, oh, well, Donald Trump let him stay. It's Donald Trump's fault. That is unabatably false. President Trump points it out and talks about it. And I couldn't agree more with what he's saying. Now, I got to say, if you think about that, and I'm going to ask you just to look into your like friend group, or if you still engage with any Democrats, and watch for that, for how many people that you see that say, oh yeah, Donald Trump, it was his fault. He didn't he didn't kick him out. Unabashedly true. And you know that person you're talking to is brainwashed by the mainstream media. Now, I got to say, the new talking point has dropped today because that one is going to fall flat. And I want you to listen to this. I might end up playing this a couple times. It's a short clip. And I really want to hear what you guys have to say, because this is the more horrific response from the Democrats and the medias.
An individual have flown across the country to target law enforcement officers in Washington, D.C. And I mean, the answer is likely no. So why wasn't the president's first thought, wow, maybe I should reconsider deploying military troops in the nation's capital or in any city, particularly not when they haven't coordinated closely with the leadership of these cities.
I'm going to play this one more time because I want you to hear the talking points. And this is Democrat Debbie Wasserman Schultz. I don't know about you, but every time I see her hair, I think ramen noodles. And I really want to hear from you guys in the chats. Like, think about this argument that they're making.
Would an individual have flown across the country to target law enforcement officers in Washington, D.C.? And I mean, the answer is likely no. So why wasn't the president's first thought, wow, maybe I should reconsider deploying military troops in the nation's capital or in any city, particularly not when they haven't coordinated closely with the leadership of these cities?
Cheryl over on the Facebook, she looks male to me. Hey, you might be right. And Diane over on the Facebook, get every last one of them out, renew visas, get them out. Don't fit in here, never will. Now, what Debbie Wasserman Schultz is saying, and I think you are going to see this as the talking point, because thank God for Twitter and some of the other alternative media like myself, other podcasts in the space, because they shot the narrative down that Trump renewed his visa. So if you see that, that's been debunked. The only people sharing that are people that are counting on folks to have like no idea what's going on. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is making the case that because the National Guard is on the city streets in our nation's capital, their lives are at risk. I want you to let that sink in. Debbie Wasserman Schultz is making the argument, and you're going to see this come out from other Democrats today, that the reason our National Guard was killed was because they had the audacity to be on the streets stopping crime in the nation's capital. That means they're saying if you go to enforce the laws, you're saying our own military is not safe on the streets in the nation's capital. I have repeated this, and I hope this is sinking into you guys. The Democrat talking points are, it should not, like, what are these guys doing being on the streets in America's national capital? I can't even imagine. You're saying America is so unsafe because of insane people like this guy that they shouldn't be out on the streets in the nation's capital. I can't even wrap my head around. I can't even wrap my head around how crazy that is. It absolutely blows me away. Now I want you to think about too. We talk about anno-tyranny or anarcho-tyranny on the show, where Democrats, the left, wants you scared, wants you afraid. They just want chaos and violence. You see it with ICE. And there's a few videos, I can't show them on some of these platforms, but we had ICE raids in St. Paul this last week. As soon as we had an ICE raid, the calls went out on social media, and it said, okay, we're going to send people to these ICE raids. So citizens went to the ICE raids. They were disrupting law enforcement. They're trying to dox law enforcement. They don't want them wearing masks because they want ICE afraid to do their jobs on the streets of America. And think about that. Like, Donald Trump won the election. We all voted, and we voted that we wanted illegal immigrants removed. And I'm going to read Trump's statement here in a second, but the American people spoke. They knew he was going to do this. We elected him. Now you have the left saying, we understand we lost the election. We understand what he's doing is not illegal, but we don't like it. So we are going to threaten you. We are going to endorse the tragedy that happened in D.C. by people saying, I'm okay with this. It blows me away. He and John over on Facebook. Does anyone ever think that if these governors never let their states become an S-hole, that there wouldn't be any need for the National Guard in the first place? This is exactly it. Donald Trump had to send people to the streets of D.C. because it was the murder rate was higher in D.C. than it is in third world countries. In our nation's capital, it is insane. But anyways, God love Donald Trump, because Donald Trump, as all this madness is unfolding, he always drops tweets on the holidays, and you always wait for them, and the tweets are always fire. And this one was so good. A lot of times we'll just highlight it. But today I really wanted to read and enjoy the full Donald Trump tweet. So I apologize if this is a little long, but I think worth sharing. Hang on. This was released 9 hours ago. A very happy Thanksgiving salutation to all of our great American citizens and patriots who've been so nice in allowing our country to be divided, disrupted, carved up, murdered, beaten, mugged, laughed at, along with certain other foolish countries throughout the world for being politically correct and just plain stupid, all caps, when it comes to immigration. The official United States foreign population stands at 53 million people, according to the census, most of which are on welfare from failed nations or from prisons, mental institutions, gangs, or drug cartels. They and their children are supported through massive payments from patriotic American citizens who, because of their beautiful hearts, do not want to openly complain or cause trouble in any way, shape, or form. They put up with what has happened to our country, but it's eating them alive to do so. A migrant earning $30,000 with a green card will get roughly $50,000 in yearly benefits to their family. The real migrant population is much higher. This refugee burden is the leading cause of societal dysfunction in America, something that did not exist after World War II. Failed schools, high crimes, urban decay, overcrowded hospitals. As an example, hundreds of thousands of refugees from Somalia are completely taken over the once great state of Minnesota. Somali gangs are roving the streets looking for prey as our wonderful people stay locked in their apartments, hoping against hope they will be left alone. The seriously retarded governor of Minnesota, yes, Donald Trump called him retarded, Tim Walz, does nothing, either through fear, incompetence, or both, while the worst congresswoman in our country, Ilhan Omar, always wrapped in her swaddling hijab, who would probably come into the USA illegally, in that you're not allowed to marry your brother, does nothing but hatefully complain about our country, its constitution, and how badly she is treated. When her place of origin is a decadent, backwards, crime-ridden nation, which is essentially not even a country for the lack of government, military, schools, etc. Even if we have progressed technologically, immigration policy has eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to fully recover, terminate all the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anybody who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, and all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens, deneutralize immigrants who undermine domestic tranquility, deport any foreign nationals who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. These goals will be pursued with the aim of achieving a major reduction in illegal and disruptive populations, including those admitted through unauthorized illegal auto pen approval. Only reverse migration can fully cure the situation. Other than that, happy Thanksgiving to all, except those who hate, steal, murder, and destroy everything America stands for. You won't be here long. I gotta say, I don't know about you guys, but pump that in my veins. I have been waiting, and I think it was Fally or Mark earlier said over on the Rumble chat, I have to go find it. I want the Donald Trump the left keeps fear-mongering about. That is the Donald Trump that I want to see on our city streets. Or that I want to see running the government. I want Donald Trump to put the hammer down. My greatest fear and criticism of President Trump so far in the first term has been he has not done enough. He has not gone far enough. He has not stopped this nonsense from happening. Now, to break out just a few things. When Donald Trump calls Tim Walz retarded, I find that really funny. You're going to see a bunch of media stories. Oh my God, Donald Trump called Tim Walz a slur. A slur. Why does Donald Trump pick on people with special needs? Now, if you watch this podcast, I'm hoping to have a functioning brain. We know that when you use retarded, we are not making any disparaging remark about somebody with mental issues on the spectrum, whatever term you want to use. Myself, probably many in the chat, might have some of that retardation themselves. when you call somebody a retard, you are talking about somebody who is just acting the fool. Now, the media is going to hop on this, try to make it a thing. Your Democrat neighbor is going to be like, oh my gosh, who uses such slurs? Grow up. The second thing is he talks about Ilhan Omar marrying her brother, and they're going to say, yeah, it's like that's been disproven or whatnot. Whatever, folks. Do your own research. You can see the immigration things. The greater point Donald Trump is making, and this is, how can I say it? This is a critical point that I think everybody needs to understand. Donald Trump is talking about when you bring people into America, they should be a net positive to your country. Much like if you were bringing somebody into your company or renting out a room in your house, you would vet them. You would say, okay, this is how my house, my company works. This is how my country works. We're largely Judeo-Christian nation. Well, we'll let you practice your religion, but we don't want share law. Like, keep that out of here. We are a capitalist nation. Get that, get your socialism out of here. Get that out of here. And we want, a free and fair people that love America. We all love America. Was there slavery? Yeah. Did we figure it out? Yeah. Is there inequality? Yeah. Are we working to figure it out? Yeah. We're working to make this. And I still argue that America 2025 is the greatest nation in the history of mankind. Even a poor person in America has the highest standard of living of recorded history. It is ridiculous. And America, because we are standing on the shoulders of giants that built this country. And so if you're not going to love this country, if you're not going to appreciate, respect the values that we promulgated, get out, go home. We don't need you here. And I got to go into the chat because I see the chat going on fire. Now, normally Todd and I are doing the podcast. We're bouncing back and forth and one are showing chats, but I just want to see what you guys thought about the statement here. Mark, Somali scam, even a program for autistic kids in SNAP and send them money overseas to terrorists. Has not been proven yet. But yeah, for those who haven't heard, we covered it, I think, on last week's episode. There was a dude who Somali kids, they had a 60-70% of them were filing as autistic, and then you were getting money, and that money's going to pay for your house, your services, all those sorts of things. And much of it allegedly is being funneled overseas. Randy over on the Facebook, get out. We got, I'm going to get this name pronounced wrong, Sherilyn. I think many immigrants and new people that move to the United States are basically very rude to the foundation of this country. They rush here from countries where the real pressed and have the bad habit of not assimilating to the Constitution of the United States rule of law. I don't appreciate them. I'm going to change. They need to change our Americans' foundations. It's funny because we talk about it on the podcast. It is somehow too egregious that we ask people to learn to speak English when you come to America. You're going to come here, you're going to live permanently, and you're going to expect that we're going to learn your language, or you're not going to learn, totally disrespectful. I got to say, where was it? I just saw it over on the Twitter. Oh, it got lost. The chats are hopping today, guys. I love when the chats are hopping. Fally, yes. Jim Gale over on the Facebook. Yes. Thank you, Mr. President. We are 100% behind you. ICE, send them all back. K-Gun Girl loves it. Daniel Miller, I think it's absolutely true. Brian over on the Facebook. That's awesome. Joe, throw the lowlifes out. K-Gun Girl, it's what we desperately need. I'm going to get that name wrong. I'm not even going to try. I agree. Fally, Tampon Tim is the R word. Or that was Mark. And then Fally, politically correct, is killing our country. Can we get to the point where we're quick calling everybody's names? Fally coming in hot today. They are not blood-sucking vampires. Jerry, welcome to the podcast. I think I've seen your chats before. If not, welcome. They're telling us they want us dead, so we just have to wait until they start killing Americans. Yes, that's what they're talking about. I will say, Trump Nation, be careful of these ones, guys. Sometimes those can be scams. But anyways, Francis, too, Donald John Trump needs to keep his foot on the pedal. I would argue Donald Trump needs to put his foot on the pedal. Because the point is, he took office in January. We're now almost February 1st. We are long ways through the first term. Republican Congress has done nothing. Donald Trump is doing what he can. He needs to continue, like the deportations he can push through in the executive branch. He doesn't need Congress to do it. And let's be honest, once we get through Christmas, we're going to be in re-election season. Congress will do nothing. Republicans are stopping Donald Trump, not Democrats. Never forget that. But I got to say, when I see things like Donald Trump saying this, I get super excited. Now, on the heels of this, now I got to make a transition from screen sharing here. We had one of my favorite members of the administration, one Mr. Thomas Homan, who came on and was talking about ICE, what we're doing, how we're doing.
From the beginning of the administration, and even if you keep going at the pace you're going at, that's a dent in the illegal alien population. People would deport, who are deportable aliens right now. So what do you say to those people who say, this is great, but it's nowhere near enough?
Then come put a badge and gun on and give us a hand. ICE is hiring record numbers. Bottom line is, I just said just about 650,000 deportations. That is several 100,000 more than the record that was back in 2012. So it was already a historic operation. Second of all, you got to consider the people who have left the country out of fear of being deported. There's over 1.6 million of them. So there's well over 2.2 million left the country already. And that's been a part of the plan from the beginning. We knew if we send over 1,000 ICE teams out across the country, we send a message to the whole world. You enter this country illegally, we're looking for you. And by sending that message, by having anything, ICE is one of the reasons we have the most secure border in the history of the nation right now, because people aren't coming because they know there's consequences. So between the record number of deportations, the record number of self-deports, we're already having a historic deportation operation. But hold on tight. We're hiring 10,000 more. That's going to be on duty by mid-January. That's tripling the size of enforcement removal operations. So if you think the numbers are historic now, wait till next year.
Well, that's music to my ears.
All right, let's unpack what the man, the myth, the legend, Thomas Homan just broke down. And let's give a fair critique of Trump. People say, Trump people are never critical, rah, rah, rah. So one, and I think the chat agrees with me, Diane over on the Facebook, Congress has done nothing. Pam needs to go. She's lollygagging, and Wiles is part of the enemy. I don't think you're too far off on that, to be honest, Diane. So the Congress has done nothing. Essentially, we're a year in. Let's just call it a year. Donald Trump has stopped all of the illegals coming into the country. Shout out, thumbs up, excellent work. Now, what Donald Trump hasn't done, the wall's not built. So the next time that Democrats take power, which that will happen, folks, they're just going to start streaming across if we don't get the wall built. Trump's got to get that done. The other thing is the way we're interpreting the laws, Donald Trump is, when people show up at the border, they're not letting them in. They're saying, stay in Mexico until we process your claim. And then you come in. However, the flip side, what Joe Biden did is said, when you show up, we let you in the country to wait for your asylum claim. That's the huge difference. When a Democrat gets back in the Oval Office, they will reinterpret it again, where you get to come in the country while you wait for your court date. And the court date takes a long time. So the influx in has stopped. It can be reopened by the swipe of a pen if a Democrat wins the presidency. Congress needs to pass a law to stop that. Okay, now the other thing Holman talked about is how many deportations. There's a lot of different numbers floating around for how many have been deported. We like to talk about the Maryland man, for those who remember. He's still in the process of being deported. The Democrats, the NGOs, the liberals have rallied behind him, and they have made deporting him like one of the most difficult processes that you've ever seen in your life. And I got to say, it makes me sick and tired of what I see them doing to make it so difficult. But they're actually hired a bunch of ICE people to help speed up the process. And they've also are hiring a bunch of immigration judges. This immigration judge thing is funny. So for those who don't know, Will Tanner, one of my business partners, he does our Substack on the American Tribune.news. Will shows up on the podcast every now and again. He writes a lot of our articles. But Will's actually a lawyer. And they sent out a notice. They're looking for immigration judges. And it just needs to be somebody with a law degree to look at an immigration claim and then decide if they stay or not. Because how this process works, you show up at the border and you say, I'm fleeing something in my home country. And there's only a few certain things that will let you in. If you're a Christian in a Muslim country, because they tend to kill Christians, you get to come into America, if that makes sense. But it's not always guaranteed. If you're like, my country's poor, well, that doesn't qualify you for asylum, go home. And then these folks get issued an order to go home. Most of them don't leave, so then ICE has to go round them up. So anyways, Tom Homan is laying out a path that I think could be key. More immigration judges, more ICE people to detain folks. The other thing, and I should actually find the video. It's kind of hard to do when you're soloing, but I should find the video of when ICE was shutting down in Minnesota. They were doing a raid, and all these citizens rallied to the raid to disrupt law enforcement so they couldn't do their job. I think that the people that disrupt ICE should be arrested and should be charged to the extreme end of whatever we can legally charge them with. I mean, I'm kind of a radical. I wouldn't be opposed if you deported them to just, hey, you're just going to wake up in Mexico, but I know we probably can't do that legally. But anybody disrupting ICE operations needs to be deported home. Now, I got to go over to the chats here to see what's going on. Diane, yes, they've done nothing. Congress is a joke, and Pam is worse. We got D, and D brings up an interesting point. I'm hearing rumbles that Susie is out, and Sidney Powell could be put in Pam Bondi's place. Sidney can prosecute cases in military court as well. I've heard those rumbles, and I got to say, D, don't tease me with a good time. Sidney Powell, she lost a little credibility with the Unleash the Kraken. That was a little over the top, which I don't know if she was wrong. I think 2020 is still a little up in the air, but yeah, I'm hearing the same rumble. Susie's out. I'm hearing Kash Patel's on thin ice. I think Donald Trump's just pissed. He's like, we're a year in, not a single person from the Biden Obama administration's been locked up. Not a single person of all the Congress people that did all these horrible things. Not one of them been kicked out of Congress or arrested. We do not have a perp walk. I often talk about, I got to find my Kash Patel book. Like Kash Patel told me in Government Gangsters, we were going to get perp walks. I got the autographed copy. I supported Kash going into that role. He promised me perp walks. Kash Patel, I have not got a perp walk, but I'm just saying. Fally does make an excellent point too. This man has put his life in danger and his family for this country. God protect him and all the ICE agents, National Guard, and police. And thinking back to that Debbie Wasserman Schultz clip, think of what the left is telling you. And this isn't some radical Antifa blogger. This is somebody serving in Congress. They're saying if ICE, if the National Guard is doing their jobs as outlined in a legal manner by the President of the United States, their life is in jeopardy. That is tyranny. That is that needs to really sink into everybody, kind of where we're at. You got Mary over here. Don't forget how Trump is stopped by the corrupt judges. Yeah, and answer me this too while we're talking about it. How many judges have been impeached? The number's 0. We haven't impeached a single one of these judges. We got Mark checking in. Say whatever the number is, it is not enough. I want 20, 30 million people sent home. I want them all sent home. And I got to say, let us know in the chat too. Because there's this talking point. Donald Trump said, we're going to start with criminals. And for those who turned into our podcast for a while, read our content, no. We want everybody sent home. We're okay if you start with criminals. We want y'all to go home. And now the Democrats coming out saying, Donald Trump said he would just go after the worst of the worst. Don't care. Want them all to go home. Donald Trump's now saying they all got to go home. So pack your bags. Don't know where you're going to go, but you just got to get out of here. Yeah, and I got to say, over in our Rumble chat too, Francis is right. Don't believe the rumors till I see DJT's signature. Yeah, it's fun to speculate. I don't know. Like, anybody trying to guess what Donald Trump's going to do, like, good luck. You might have better luck picking sports games. Kagan girl, they're dragging their feet. He needs very different people. Get rid of Bongino also. Bongino, a disappointment in the action I expected to have. And don't get me wrong, the men and women of the FBI doing great work, busting up a lot of pedophile rings. They're doing what they can to restructure. How do I not get a perp walk? How do I not get a perp walk, Dan Bongino? You got Chris. I agree. If you interfere with ICE, federal agents, you should be charged with a federal crime. How is this? I mean, think about that. Like Debbie Wasserman Schultz is saying, yeah, National Guard and ICE, your life is going to be in danger on American soil if you do your job. What? And now you think there are citizens in America who think it's appropriate. Oh, ICE is raiding illegals, and we don't agree with that. We're going to go disrupt this operation. Now, why are those people still walking the streets? How is that happening? I can't even wrap my head around it. K-Gun Girl, honestly, Cash looks like a joke after all he said before he was in the job. Yeah, and I go on the Wayne Dupree podcast Monday through Thursday. Tune in. But we had Cash on, and he was talking about that. And that was my question to him. Like, hey, if you get elected, if Trump gets elected and you're part of the administration, are you really going to do this stuff, or is this just talk? And he told us to our face, nope, this is real. We're going to do it. And I'm like, oh, you got to be kidding me. It hasn't happened yet. Bongino's been wanting Pam gone. Yeah, we'll see. We will see. I think K-Gun Girl hits nail on the head. We need Pam to go for sure. She's wasting precious time. And we got the Francis and the K-Gun Girl talking about bringing Matt Gaetz back, bring him back as a special counsel. Yeah, that would never happen. He would never be approved. You know why? Republicans wouldn't approve Matt Gaetz. But I'm a big Matt Gaetz fan. I wish he'd be approved. I got to say, too, we're coming up on like 40, 50 minutes in, and we have our first troll, the mighty J at large, Melania and her parents. Thank you for pointing out the obvious. And I love when we get Democrat trolls on the show. Todd really enjoys them, too. Melania and her parents, they wanted to come to America. They applied. They said, hey, would you like to come here? What are our requirements? We need to learn to speak English. We need to agree to certain things. They did the whole process while in their home country. Once they were approved, they came into America. Exactly what we want to have happen. And I got to say, Becky usually tunes into the show. She's a great resource for this because she talks about she came from Canada. Here's what it looked like. Here's what happened. Here's how it worked. And it's astounding. And like I say, what's really funny is the mighty AJ at large is sitting there like, I own them. I'm going to bring up Melania and her parents coming here legally. We are arguing with idiots on the left. Yes, the mighty AJ. We are saying that we 100% want every illegal to come in here exactly how Melania and her parents did. I'm glad we can agree. We wish you peace and love on your Black Friday. But man, some of these guys, it's crazy. Well, and John Robert Hayes brings up an interesting point. I need to know why they're dragging their feet. Are their families being threatened? I will say, and we talk about this on the podcast, sometimes I got to be real careful on some of these platforms. Sometimes you'll discover that there are people more powerful than the president of the United States or the government. And sadly, like, I think we're seeing that with the Epstein files. And I think using the judges as an example, because we just had a case in Minnesota where a Somali man was convicted of a bunch of fraud with Medicaid. And it was like a week-long trial. The testimony was pretty overwhelming. The jury returned a verdict in a couple hours. Guy was convicted on all counts. Jurors have come out and said, yeah, this was an open and shut case. The next day, the judge reverses the ruling. And the judge says, well, we shouldn't let this case go. So literally, Keith Ellison, who is an insane leftist, brings a case. They present it. The jury overwhelmingly says this is a slam dunk. The judge overturns the jury's decision. Now, did the judge really feel that way? Possibly. Was the judge threatened? Were they bribed? Something like that? Probably way more likely. All right. Well, so we're getting up on 50 minutes. I think we've talked about ICE, the overall deportations, but we need to go into one of the favorite topics of the show. Todd, my partner, who's usually here with me on Fridays, and myself from Minnesota, we see and we live firsthand the Somali invasion. And we've covered it on the show, but Donald Trump addressed that in his tweet. And I also got a video to share with you guys about Donald Trump talking about the Somalis in Minnesota. So sit back and enjoy.
Somalians have to do with this Afghan guy who shot the national?
Nothing, but Somalians have caused a lot of trouble. They're ripping us off for a lot of money. There's a tremendous amount of money going back to Somalia. What the hell are we paying money to Somalia for? But they're ripping off our country at a level that few people have been able to see before. That's about the only thing. You talk about competence. We have Ilhan Omar, who does nothing but complain about our country and our Constitution. And she comes from a country with practically no country. It's devastated. It's crime-ridden. It's a mess. It's a disgrace. And we took their people at tremendous. We're not taking their people anymore. We're not taking their people. And we're getting a lot of their people out because they're nothing but trouble.
Now, I got to say, for anybody who's watched the Freedom from the Press podcast, you know our opinion of the Somali stuff. And I got to say, we're going to dive into it, and it makes a perfect transition point from some of our other platforms. Because as we're going into discussions about Somalia, it's going to get a little spicy. So with that, I'm going to say YouTube, Facebook. We love you guys. We got big audiences on there. I think we're up all told on all the pages over 1,000 likes over on Facebook. Like, think of that. 1,000 people checking in. We love you and we appreciate you. Some of the stuff we got to talk about, though, we got to get you over to the Rumble. Now, if you haven't been on Rumble, if you're on a desktop, just type in rumble.com, make an account, just like the YouTube. And I'm going to give Fally grief. Fally, very active chatter. We had to work hard to get Fally over there. Fally was trying to check in on Facebook. We're like, get to Rumble, Fally. And lost the login, had trouble. Fally figured it out. But we need more of you guys to figure it out. We got a great community on over there. We get 20 to 50 people watching live for a smaller platform. Super cool. But it's a great group of people, too. We all hang out and we all talk politics and chat a little more freely over there. So I'm going to play a 60-second outro video. Hopefully I don't screw this up. Going to log off on the Facebook, the YouTube, and then we're going to come back and we're going to talk Somalia over on the Rumble channel. and we'll do some other fun stuff. So with that, hopefully I get the transition right. Todd usually handles all this. So Facebook, YouTube, we'll see you next week, and Rumble, we'll see you on the flip side. All right, guys. Give me just 1 sec to finish killing. You know, it's funny. Some of these platforms, I wish that we could